The early morning sun had just started spilling over the desert horizon when Jake Rayner unlocked the doors to his small diner, Rayner's Grill, a modest roadside joint along the Texas-Mexico border. To anyone passing through, he looked like an ordinary single dad, quiet, polite, worn jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and a soft southern drawl that never hinted at violence. Only his eyes, cold, gray, and piercing, hinted at the storms he had seen. For the locals, Jake was just the veteran guy, raising his daughter, Sophie. They didn't know that years ago, he was Delta Force Ghost, the man Cartels whispered about, the one who moved unseen, left no witnesses, and never missed a shot. After losing his wife to cancer, he hung up the rifle, swore off killing, and opened the diner in her memory. It was his peace, or at least, it had been, until the morning the cartel came. Jake's diner sat at a lonely stretch of highway where truckers, bikers, and border patrol agents often stopped for breakfast. That day, Sophie was in the kitchen helping her dad prep eggs and coffee. She was 15, sharp, kind-hearted, and far too aware that her father's silence hid something deep. "Dad," she said, whisking eggs. "You ever think about going back to your old job?" Jake smirked faintly. "Serving bad coffee and burnt toast. I'm already there, kiddo." She rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean." He froze for a second, the whisk of her motion echoing memories, Afghanistan, cartel raids, friends lost in the jungle. Then he forced a chuckle. "Nah, sweetheart, I had enough of that life. This is home now." But before Sophie could reply, the sound of engines tore through the stillness, 5 black SUVs screeching to a stop outside the diner. Dust rose around them like a storm cloud. Jake's instincts kicked in instantly. He reached under the counter, pressing a hidden button that locked the kitchen door where Sophie stood. "Dad," she called, alarmed. "Stay put. Don't open that door unless I tell you." The diner doors burst open. 12 armed men stormed in, faces masked, rifles raised, tattoos of the Lobo cartel gleaming under their sleeves. Their leader, a tall man with a gold chain and snake tattoo curling around his neck, smirked. "Morning, old man," he said in a thick accent. "You got something that belongs to us." Jake stayed calm. "You must have the wrong diner." The man slammed his gun butt on the counter. "We don't make mistakes. Someone's been helping border agents seize our shipments, someone giving them intel from this side." Jake tilted his head, eyes flicking over their gear, military-grade rifles, poorly held stances, no real discipline. Street killers, not soldiers. He could smell fear beneath the arrogance. "You think I look like your rat?" Jake asked. The man sneered. "I think you're hiding him. Maybe upstairs, maybe in your kitchen." He nodded to his men. "Search everywhere." Jake's blood ran cold. "Sophie." He spoke low and steady. "You send your men through that door, they won't come back out." The leader laughed. Big words for a cook. Jake's face didn't change. Last warning. When the first man kicked the kitchen door, a knife flew from Jake's hand faster than a blink. It buried deep in the man's neck. He dropped instantly, choking on his own blood. Silence froze the room. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire tore through the diner, windows shattered, plates exploded, coffee sprayed across the counter. Jake dove behind a booth, rolled, grabbed the shotgun he kept beneath the table. One pump, boom, and another cartel soldier flew backward, crashing through the jukebox. "Ghost," one of the men shouted in Spanish. "It's the ghost." Panic rippled. The name spread like wildfire, El Fantasma. The legend they all feared but didn't believe was real. Jake moved like a shadow, rolling, reloading, every shot precise, silent fury in motion. Within minutes, 6 men were down. The survivors scrambled for cover, screaming into radios for backup. The leader, now pale, ducked behind the counter. You're him." Jake's voice was ice. "And you just made the last mistake of your life." The man bolted out the back door. Jake followed, but not before checking the kitchen. Sophie was trembling behind a shelf, clutching a frying pan. "Dad," he pulled her close. "Stay here. No matter what happens, don't move. Please, just call the police." He gave her a look that ended the sentence. "They'll come after you next if I don't finish this." Then he was gone. Outside, the desert wind howled as more SUVs arrived, dozens of cartel reinforcements, armed to the teeth. Jake counted at least 20. Outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. He slipped through the shadows, moving along the back fence. He broke open a hidden crate buried near the dumpster. Inside, a compact M4 rifle, night vision goggles, grenades, and a knife etched with the Delta Force insignia. The ghost had come back to life. The cartel fanned out, shouting commands. Jake climbed onto the diner roof, scanned the desert. He picked off 2 with clean headshots. Another dropped when he triggered a gas explosion by shooting a propane tank near one of the SUVs. Fire roared across the sand. Below, Sophie watched in horror from the window, her father a phantom in smoke and flame. The leader screamed into his radio, "Pull back! Pull back!" But Jake didn't let them. He leapt from the roof, rolled into the sand, and tackled one of the gunmen. In seconds, the man's own rifle turned against him. Jake fought like a predator unleashed, brutal, efficient, unstoppable. When the smoke cleared, the ground was littered with bodies and burning cars. Only the leader remained, crawling toward his vehicle. Jake grabbed him by the collar, slammed him against the door. "Who sent you?" The man coughed blood. "Reyes. Don Miguel Reyes. He said the ghost was dead." Jake's grip tightened. "Then tell him he was wrong." He dropped the man unconscious on the dirt. By the time the police and border patrol arrived, Jake was gone. Only Sophie sat outside the diner, wrapped in a blanket, trembling as she watched the flames die. "Where's your father?" an officer asked. She looked at the horizon. "He'll be back. He always comes back." But Jake didn't return right away. He had unfinished business. 2 nights later, deep in the mountains of Sonora, Mexico, Don Miguel Reyes sat in his mansion surrounded by armed guards. He was mid-conversation with his lieutenant when the lights cut out. Then, one by one, guards vanished from the security cameras. Static. Reyes stood, hand trembling as he grabbed his pistol. "Who's there?" a whisper echoed behind him. "Ghost." When the lights flicked back on, Jake stood inches away, mask pulled down, rifle trained on Reyes. "You sent men to my home," Jake said coldly. "You pointed guns at my daughter." Reyes stammered. You can't just." Jake silenced him with a punch that sent him crashing to the floor. He fired 2 shots into the wall beside Reyes's head, making him flinch. "Listen carefully," Jake said. "You leave Texas. You pull every man off that border, or next time, I won't stop here. I'll wipe your whole operation from the earth." Reyes nodded frantically. "Understood." Jake lowered his rifle, but before walking out, he tossed a flash drive onto the desk. "That's everything your men smuggled, every route, every deal. The feds will be here in an hour. You've got that long to disappear." Then he vanished into the night. Days later, Rayner's grill reopened. The diner had bullet holes patched, new windows installed, and Sophie back at the counter. Business was booming, locals drawn by curiosity, truckers whispering about the shootout. Jake never confirmed or denied anything. When someone asked if he'd seen what happened, he just said, "Guess folks shouldn't mess with breakfast." But Sophie knew. And every morning, she'd catch her dad standing outside the diner at sunrise, staring toward the horizon, the desert wind brushing his face, his hand resting on a necklace that belonged to her late mother. "You're thinking about her again," Sophie would say. Jake smiled softly. "Always. Do you ever miss being him?" she asked. He looked down at his calloused hands. "The ghost? No. But I'll never stop being your dad." For a while, peace returned. But in the shadows, a new rumor spread along the border. Reyes had disappeared, and a cartel war was breaking out to fill the power vacuum. And in every whispered story, one name kept surfacing, El Fantasma. Jake knew the fight wasn't over. Evil never really stopped, it just waited for men like him to let their guard down. But he also knew this: as long as Sophie was safe, as long as the diner lights still burned, he had something worth protecting. That night, when Sophie fell asleep, Jake sat alone at the counter, polishing an old combat knife. His reflection in the blade looked older, wearier, but still deadly calm. He whispered to himself, "They came for the wrong man." Outside, the wind howled through the desert again, carrying dust, smoke, and the ghost of a soldier who refused to die. Because when the world forgot what heroes looked like, Jake Rayner reminded them that sometimes, the quietest man in the room was the one everyone should fear. And the legend of the Delta Force ghost lived on, hidden in plain sight, behind the counter of a diner that served the best coffee in Texas and the deadliest warning the cartels would ever receive. He had become what he was always meant to be, A father, a protector, and a ghost no evil could ever outrun.